Good afternoon, Southern California. I'm John Baldwin with John Hart Real Estate, and today is February 3rd, 2022. What I want to cover today is the form you see in front of you. This is a California Association of Realtors form. It is what we call the repair request. I like to refer to this form as sort of round two of negotiations. You negotiate the deal, the real estate contract, get the offer accepted by the seller. Then you do your home inspection, you do your investigations, you get all your seller disclosures and paperwork and all the investigation type stuff together. And then you review the home inspection, you review the appraisal, you review all this stuff, and you have things that need to be repaired. But there are a couple different ways that we go about it. So this is the form, and as you can see, got the repair request number. That's just so we can kind of track which request we're dealing with, if there's more than one. Date prepared, that's self-explanatory. And then you have, purchase agreement dated. That's so we know what document we're making a repair request to. This is just how the chain of paperwork is. It's mostly for us agents, but kind of give you an idea what the top of that form is about. And then you can see buyer request. And that is where there are a couple different strategies. And this is part of this negotiation. It's part of, knowing how to press buttons to get the response that you want out of the seller. So there are times that we will do what I call the laundry list, and we get the big list of everything that is wrong with the property, and we're trying to do a little bit of sort of shock and awe, like just shock the seller to like, oh my God, look at the size of this list. What do we do? And either they're going to go through and say, yes, we can agree to these items. We'll agree to items 1, 2, 5, 7, 9, they'll look at it and see which ones they're willing to do and which ones they aren't. But sometimes we're doing this, we're trying to shock the seller so that they'll come back to us with a big dollar amount. So it's one of those where there are a couple different strategies. It's just about, what kind of leverage we can have as a buyer to get the seller to either do work, hey, we need these repairs done. If we can't come to an agreement, then, we're going to cancel. We're out. The other is we need a price reduction, like, hey, there's a bunch of work here. What if we drop the price for, hey, it needs a new roof, it needs new plumbing. What if we drop the price 20, 25,000? See, there are a couple different strategies here. And it all depends on what you're really moving for. Lately, what we've been moving for is mostly for credits. And that's just a way to get money from one side of the transaction to the other. Unless there's a major, we're talking, hey, we got $70,000 worth of work. We need to drop the price because we're not going to be able to use $70,000 worth of credits. Because when we take money from one side of a transaction to the other, we have to do, basically we do credits for closing costs. Closing costs are title fees, escrow fees, and lender fees. And the lender usually caps that at 3%. And sometimes it's hard to even use that 3%. So we want to make sure that, one, the lender's okay with the dollar amounts you're dealing with, but two, that you can use it all. Sometimes you got to be creative. We buy down points, and things like that. So you can maybe get a better interest rate by using some of that credit to buy down the interest rate. So there are ways to manipulate it. But, again, we move for credits a lot, mostly because it puts the buyer in the driver's seat as far as the quality of the work and the repairs that are going to be done. Because when a seller does a repair, their goal is to technically satisfy the condition of the repair request, meaning they're going to do it the cheapest, fastest way they can. They're not necessarily going to do it at a quality that you as the new owner would want. They're just going to technically satisfy the conditions. So would you rather have to go back and kind of clean up somebody else's work or fix somebody else's repair and do it a second time? Or would you credit the money from one side of the transaction to the other and then handle that repair yourself? Most of the time lately, as I said, we're trying to get that credit so you can be in the driver's seat as far as the quality and level of craftsmanship that goes into the repairs that you're having done on your home. There's another section here which is also important, is section 1 and section 2 there right in the middle. That is talking about termite work. Now, one of the things I do, and most of I would think most of my office also does, is we do not like to put the termite work in the original offer paperwork. Now, this is very important because when it's in the original offer paperwork, there are times when a big bank may say, "Hey, I see there's something here about termite work," like. That's why I don't even ask for a termite report in the offer. We can get one anyway during our investigation period and then do a repair request for that work. And they've specifically put it here on the repair request and actually took it out of the residential purchase agreement a couple years ago so that it would be a point of negotiation during the repair request and not during the offer, offer phase. Mainly because I've literally had a bank say, "Hey, we know you negotiated for a credit for this termite work, but our underwriter is requiring that work be done and we get a termite clearance." So if that's not on the original offer they won't see it, they can't ask for it, they can't make it part of their conditions to fund the loan. So that's why 99 times out of 100, we're going to push that to the repair request phase. That way, we can do the negotiations we need to get the work done without throwing up a hurdle for a lender to have to deal with because they're underwriting standards. So that's one of the things we do. And then you can see below, there's also the section here with we have to attach the report. So when you get that termite report, you get the home inspection report, you get the foundation, the sewer camera, the roof, whatever reports you get, you have to provide them to the seller. And this is the other part of where the repair request is so clutch, is that when you discover something in the investigation period, and then you provide those reports to the seller, if there is something in there that is a disclosure issue, as in they will have to be they will be required to tell the next buyer if you back out, like, "Hey, we found a major foundation problem." They will be required to tell that next buyer, "Hey, by the way, we have a report on the property that there's a major foundation issue," and that's going to impact repair requests from a second buyer, or potentially the dollar amount that second buyer will even offer on the property. So I know it sounds bad, but when we find major disclosure issues, when we're on the buy side, it gives us all the leverage in the world to get the seller to pay for that repair or to reduce the price or to give us that credit, because now they've got a problem. If this deal blows up, they've got to tell the next buyer about it. The sewer line's busted or clogged, or hey, the foundation is cracked and needs a $20,000 repair. Those are now concrete items that they know about and have to tell the next buyer if you back out. That gives you incredible leverage as a buyer. That's why I love it as a buyer's agent when I'm working with buyers to have a problem, because now I know how to word it to get that seller to do something by giving us a bigger credit or working with us to get things done. Because I know when you're on the sell side, if you got a sewer line that's backed up, you have to disclose, "Hey, FYI, the previous buyer found out that the sewer line isn't backed up or cracked or something." Or, "Oh, FYI, the previous buyer found out that the roof is leaking and there's this major roof problem that has to be dealt with." These are things that when you get concrete knowledge as a seller, you are required by law to disclose. And that gives the buyer a ton of leverage in this second round of negotiations. And that's why I call it the second round of negotiations, not just a repair request. Because if it was just a repair request, sellers would be a little less willing to work with you. But that's why I love leverage. You got to figure out what is your point of leverage, what is the motivation for the seller. So there's a lot involved here, and it takes an agent who knows how to properly frame everything when they're talking to that other agent to get the right credit amount. Sometimes, you do the big ask, like, all right, we need, I'm just going to throw a number, a $7,500 credit to get what we really want done. Maybe we ask for a $15,000 credit, knowing that they're probably going to try to cut that in half. Or maybe we ask for a $20,000, $25,000 credit, knowing that they're probably going to make a counter or, do something smaller that will then appear as like, oh, we didn't have to give them that big credit. We gave them a much smaller credit. So there's some strategy here, and you just got to have a good plan of attack that you and your agent, me, have talked about, and we can execute that strategy. I've done it, where we've knocked, $50,000 off of a property because of, problems we found that, while fixable, there's something that the buyer's going to have to deal with. So I've done some big credits through the years. Did one in Burbank recently where I think we got $25,000 off of a less than $1 million sale. So that was a pretty big dollar amount on that one. So it's very doable to get the money moved around. Remember, money's fungible. So even though we're moving it from one side of the transaction to the other by labeling it for closing costs, what that effectively is doing is saying, hey, you don't have to bring that $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to the closing table. Now you can leave that in your bank account and use that money for the roof or the plumbing or whatever needs to be done. Because, if you pour, dollar bills into a bucket, they're not labeled roof, they're not labeled closing costs. Money's fungible. So hopefully this has been informative. I've got, there are a lot more questions you can ask, but I think this covers the basics. Sometimes, you can see here, this option C is sometimes you ask for the credit straight away. So I've found that when you put the laundry list out, you put all these items out, you can frequently get the seller's agent to, do a bigger credit potentially than if you say, hey, here's the dollar amount. So it's all about strategy and picking which buttons you're trying to push. Do we want to just reduce the purchase price like item D there? Do we want to ask for a specific credit amount? And I've done it where we've been very specific. Like, no, we have a bid for $11,000 to fix the foundation. We have a bid for $2,200 for termite work. We have a bid for, this other problem. The total is this, and you ask exactly for that. So there are times when you don't even do the big ask. You do the specific ask is what I, look at that as. So there are times, and it's all about strategy. It's all about the agent, me, thinking about the psychology of how to deal with that other agent. What is that other agent? What is that seller? What are their personalities? How are they going to be receptive? What's my leverage? What buttons can I push to get that seller's agent and seller to do what I want as a buyer's agent? So a lot to think about here, but hopefully this gives you a good overview of kind of the repair request, because these repair requests are, as I said, it's round 2 of negotiations. And this is where you do this before you've removed that inspection contingency. You do it before you've removed that, appraisal or loan contingency. So you can still exit the transaction if you need to. And it gives you that leverage. It's, somewhat, sometimes you got to be like, look, if we don't get what we want, we're going to walk, and that'll work. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes the seller, especially in today's market, the seller's like, look, walk. I got 20 other buyers lined up. So we got to know what the psychology of the market, what the psychology of the seller. There are lots of little things that you need to talk to me about, and we can discuss what the best strategy and tactics are for a repair request. I've done one where I've literally thrown the listing agent under the bus because of what she said in front of me and my buyer, and we did it in a narrative on an addendum. So the seller is going to have to read exactly what that listing agent said to us while we were standing there, and she mentioned the big bugaboo word mold. And so we were able to get a little bit of leverage out of that, and we got the deal done. So lots of little things like this. There's so much involved in the negotiations. You need somebody with a background in negotiation, who's been trained in negotiation and knows how to get to the common goal while also getting you, the buyer, what you want. Because the common goal is to get the property sold, but the buyer wants to get it on their terms and the seller wants to get it on their terms. So what we want to do is you need an agent who knows how to work the process and manipulate the paperwork and know how to use those buttons, use that leverage to get you the best deal possible. So give me a call, 213-973-3777, 213-973-3777, and let's get your house sold.